7:07, so you can't argue the number wasn't a headline grabber. 12.1 billion, and there is more to come apparently. Over 5 billion on wage subsidies at up to $535 a week. Almost 3 billion on the benefit increases, doubling the winter energy payment as well. 2.8 billion for tax changes to free up cash flow. $126 million on a sick leave scheme. 600 million for the aviation sector. $500 million for health. Finance Minister Grant Robertson is with us. Good morning.
Morning, Mike.
So let's deal with the sticky stuff you and I will clash on. The winter payment has got nothing to do with the virus. It's not means tested and goes to people who don't need it. Why?
Well, the winter energy payment does reach not only our beneficiaries but also superannuitants. It is true, Mike, that in this winter period we're going into now, a lot of our older people probably are going to have to be staying inside more often. We want to make sure that we support them. We also recognise that additional money that goes into our low-income people tends to be spent, so this is also part of keeping demand going.
I'll come to that in just a moment. It goes to millionaires. Why?
Well, that's because superannuation goes, and we could have a much bigger debate, you and I, if you like, about whether or not superannuation should be means tested. It's part of our social contract in New Zealand that...
But a winter energy payment is not superannuation, it's a winter energy payment.
Yes, but it's paid to all superannuitants, and many of our superannuitants, I think nearly two-thirds of them, their only source of income is New Zealand super. So I'm backing the fact that we're making sure that the elderly in New Zealand can heat their homes, Mike.
This is highly political at a time when you don't want to be political, isn't it? It applies to beneficiaries. Yes, they spend the money, no question about it. But what about the person on a low income who faces losing their job on the productive side of the economy? They would have spent it as well.
Well, Mike, on the productive side of the economy, this package is massive. I mean, we're talking about up to $5.1 billion going into the productive side of the economy over the next couple of months. We're talking about businesses being able to access that $2 billion odd worth of tax changes over the next few years. These are significant things that will make a big difference to businesses' cash flow and to their confidence.
Yeah, but not as big if you hadn't given $3 billion to benefits. There is no danger of a beneficiary losing their income. There is a danger of a worker losing their income, and more help would have helped.
I reckon we've got the balance about right in this package, Mike, and as you said in your introduction, this is just phase one. This is what we've pulled together in a very brief period of time. It's been welcomed across the board by people as getting good balance, and I think, promoting demand in the economy at the same time as supporting businesses and employees to stay attached to one another.
But I don't understand this. This package was designed because the economy is crashing as a result of the virus. The virus is affecting the working side of the economy. It is not affecting the welfare side of the economy. You're increasing the welfare side of the economy with no need when you need all hands on deck on the productive side of the economy. You can't argue with that.
Well, we're doing both, and the productive.
But you can't afford to do both, is the point.
Well, we are doing both, and the productive side of the economy also is supported by people going in and buying goods from small businesses.
But they would have spent, Grant, they would have spent the money anyway. The person who's working now, whatever you gave them by way of wage assistance, would have spent that money. The money would have been in the economy, and they would have held their job.
This is a balanced package, Mike.
But why? Why? That's what I don't understand. You're boosting the welfare side of the economy, which has nothing to do with the virus.
It does, Mike, with respect. It is about both boosting demand and also supporting our most vulnerable through this period. We know internationally...
But Grant, I'm sorry to interrupt, but if you're on a benefit... If you don't want an answer,
I won't bother.
Oh, no, but let me just put it this way. If you're on welfare, your situation does not change. You are no more or less vulnerable because of the economy or because of the virus, whereas the worker is.
Both groups need to be supported, and both groups are being supported through this package.
But why?
Mike, I think we've just been over this several times. We've got a balanced package here. New Zealanders have got to pull together on this situation. We're going to see, unfortunately, more New Zealanders lose their jobs through this. We cannot save every single job or every single business. What we can do is cushion the blow. And I ask you, Mike, to look at packages around the world. The Australian government also gave one-off increases to those on benefits and those on pensions. They also put in place permanent changes, and their business and wage subsidy scheme was $25,000 at its cap. Ours is $150,000.
Okay. As a result of yesterday, what is the percentage of debt to GDP? If you take your 12 for infrastructure, your 12 yesterday.
Yeah, look, we're getting up towards the upper end of that 15 to 25% band, but obviously it's a ratio, Mike, and we won't know what the GDP of the country is projected to be until we finalise the budget itself, and clearly there's going to be some form of slowdown and so therefore some form of reduction in GDP. But I've made clear when we set the budget responsibility rules up that we would be prepared to go outside of those rules in the event of a global economic shock.
But you can't give me a rough number. It's going to be, when you say 15 to 20, babes, it's already at 20. It's going to blow 25, isn't it?
I said that yesterday, that we will go beyond that cap over time. We've obviously got the budget to come on top of the package we announced today, but we will do what's right for New Zealanders here, Mike.
What's your upper limit in terms of debt to GDP?
Haven't set an upper limit. Obviously, in the GFC, it went over the 30% area. We've projected that this will be worse than the GFC, and so, we'll be calibrating our spending there. But this is the good thing, Mike. We have entered the situation with low net core crown debt, some of the lowest in the world. That means we have the room to respond. Is there more coming for health? The general consensus appears to be $500 million won't do it. I agree, and there will be more. This is just the first stage of that. We're at the point now where that money needs to get into the public health campaigns, to supporting more testing and tracing. That's where the focus of this package is, but there will definitely be more to come to support our DHBs. As we know, inevitably there will be more cases, there will be more pressure, and Dr. Clark and I speak on a daily basis about that. General consensus seems to be there's nothing there for larger business. Will there be? There is stuff in there for larger business. Those tax changes will be significant, particularly the depreciation changes. But we are in discussions around what we can do for large and complex businesses that are critical to our operations in New Zealand, and so we will be looking on a case-by-case basis at that. Those large businesses should also be talking to their banks, Mike, because primarily that is their relationship, and it's in the interest of all of us, the banks, the businesses, and all of us, that they continue through this period. That's fair enough. Is Air New Zealand unique in its circumstances and situation? It's unique in the sense that we are the shareholders, or 52% shareholders, and we are a national airline. You need an airline. You can't let it go. Of course, and we are the 52% shareholder, which limits me through the Companies Act to what I can say to you other than that we are in active discussions. No, I get that, but I'm just saying from the larger business perspective, they are in a unique category again. Is that fair? Indeed. Okay. Some of the stuff you may or may not have caught up on overnight. Sunak out of the UK has thrown $700 billion at it with guarantees, and he's put on a mortgage suspension of up to 3 months for people in trouble. Utility bills are gone. That's in France as well as Britain. Are those the sort of things you're looking at in May? Look, we're looking at a range of options. I'm not saying we're looking at specifically those ones. Those countries are in the grip of a community outbreak of this. We monitor this on a day-by-day basis. And actually, Mike, one of the things I said yesterday is while our focus is on the budget, that's the next obvious marker post for the next stage of this, I also reserve the right to move before then if the need arises. Okay. Tax and GST are possibly on the table? We pulled this package yesterday together in just over a week. I woke up this morning, I'm doing these interviews, and then the very next thing I do is go down and sit and look at that budget. You must have thought, though, you can't be a finance minister and not have looked at every single option. And are you ruling out tax cuts and GST cuts? I'm not ruling anything in or anything out, but one thing I would say is right about now, to fund the health system, to do the things that you've been asking about, we need all the resources we can get. But yes, we are taking a look at all the options that are available to us for the budget. S&P Standard & Poor's suggesting this morning defaults are going to be an issue, not necessarily for New Zealand, but globally. Defaults are going to be an issue. Liquidity might be an issue. Do you worry about that? Look, I think you're right about the defaults not so much being an issue in New Zealand, but liquidity is an issue. I was discussing with the Reserve Bank Governor at the start of the week, and the Reserve Bank and the government are coordinating our actions. We need to ensure liquidity stays available in the market. The bank has injected some, and I'm sure the Reserve Bank Governor will be monitoring things closely. We'll coordinate our actions from here. We're talking to Zesbury later on in the program. What's your read and what's your knowledge on China? How up and running are they, and how free-flowing is our trade currently with places like that? Getting better, and China was still not obviously up to full capacity, but it's been increasing its capacity as obviously its cases have evened out now. particularly with Zespri, and I'll be interested to hear the interview myself, but the feedback I've had from the kiwi fruit industry is that actually the health properties of kiwi fruit are going to be very popular at this time. We are getting space at ports coming on board, and I know from talking to the pit fruit folk as well, they're seeing that the orders are there. There are some issues around availability of shipping containers, but they're starting to improve as well. So I think, as an exporter of food, I think the market in China as well is still open to
That's the thing I'm trying to find out. I'm trying to look for positives at the end of it. And when you look at the numbers, they look good. China looks good. It looks like there's light at the end of that tunnel. And if there is that the case, is it a V shape, U shape, or a W bounce back?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think China will help us, move more towards the V, but in reality, I suspect it's more like the U at the moment just because of the global supply chain impacts here. It's one of the other reasons when you mentioned Air New Zealand before, with fresh produce, we're often using aircraft, and so therefore we've got to keep those routes open. So, I want to be optimistic too, Mike, and so I'll say we would like to head towards the V, but the reality is this is a global disruption and it's going to be pretty tough for most sectors over the next few months.
As always, I appreciate your time very much. Grant Robertson, the Finance Minister, with us. More in a moment, 7:18. More in a moment, 7:18.